I was just going to say, you can get it.
Thank you. Well, I hope you get out of this alive. It's very interesting. And it will look as though it's happening for the very first time, because it is. Could somebody please, I'd be very, very grateful if you could cue me when it is 1 p.m. precisely. And like Sydney Rail, we always run on time. 2 minutes. So you can't be down, sir? You're the maestro, you can count, so I can tell. Right. If I'm going over time, could somebody drag me off? Because as you well know, at 1:15 p.m. precisely, that is when this most historic event shall unfold in the form of a Morse code message. Do you come here often? Are you going to do me kind side? You're having fun, really.
Tell us a story.
I can tell lots of stories. I'd like to welcome all the dogs here today. And at a festival I presided over last Sunday with the principal of Barker College, some of the dogs chose to remain seated during the playing of the national anthem. I hope I get out of this alive. 30 seconds. Are you sure? My lords, ladies and gentlemen, good citizens of Wahroonga and beyond, time marches on, and so must we. And time waits for no man and few ladies. Be it known that I hereby welcome you all to the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the first direct wireless message from the United Kingdom to Australia. From Wales to Wahroonga. Upon this day, 100 years ago, the 22nd day of September in the year 1918, the first wireless message sent by Guglielmo Marconi for the Australian Prime Minister Billy Hughes in Wales was received by Ernest Fisk at his home Lucania, outside of which we stand today. It was received at 1:15 p.m. precisely. In celebration of this most historic occasion, I ask the Caernarfon male choir to sing the Welsh national anthem, followed by our national anthem of the day, God Save the King!
My head rather had I could always ride by the Caernarfon and walk on O'Brien. I go over God
the Caringai Male Choir under the fearless leadership of Dr. Paul Whiting, and we thank tenor soloist David Watson. And that language that you heard was not some strange Wahroonga dialect, but the national language of Wales. It is now with pride, privilege and pleasure that I present our special guest, our guest of honour. I give you the Federal Minister for Bradfield and the Minister for Families and Social Services. I give you Paul Fletcher. And we thank you, Minister, for playing your role here today in this historic celebration as Master of Ceremonies. Now, very soon, am I permitted to look at my watch? Or do we have a sundial? Or the position of the sun in the sky.
Nearly 8 minutes past.
8 minutes past. Would you like to make a political campaign?
Well, thank you very much to our town crier. And ladies and gentlemen, just before we do have the reading of the message at 1:15, let me just, if I may, on behalf of all of us, first of all acknowledge a few people who have done so much wonderful work in putting today's event together. I want to particularly acknowledge Jenny Joyce, the President of the Caringai Historical Society, and all involved with the Caringai Historical Society who've done so much work. Would you thank them for that? Can I also acknowledge John Bishop, VK2Z01, President of Hornsby and Districts Amateur Radio Club, and the Hornsby and Districts Amateur Radio Club has also played an important role in today's ceremony, so would you thank them? Now we are joined by a number of significant local figures, and let me take a moment to acknowledge some of the people who are here. And in doing this, I'm assuming that I'll be given a warning at roughly 1:14 and 30 seconds. So
The bell shall ring, sir. Okay, I do want to acknowledge particularly our Mayor, Jennifer Anderson, who is with us, and a number of other councillors who are with us, Senator Extension Peter Kelly, and Caringai councillors, you could acknowledge them, and a number of other people. A number of others who are with us. Mr. Dick Smith is with us. Would you welcome Dick, one of Australia's leading businessmen? And also a long-time North Shore local. He doesn't quite live on the North Shore now, but he went to Roseville Public School, so very much of the North Shore, and of course somebody who's been very much associated with the delivery of technology to Australia in many forms. A number of other people who are here with us, I'm going to acknowledge Alistair Henskins, State Member for Caringai, Matt Keane, State Member for Hornsby, Christine Yates, President of the Royal Australian Historical Society, Mr. Richard Knott, President of the Australia-Britain Society New South Wales branch, Mr. Matthew McGee, President of Amateur Radio New South Wales, Mr. Stuart Armstrong, President of Rotary Wahroonga, and of course a substantial number of members of the Fisk family. Particularly can I acknowledge Dr. Peter Fisk, who will be speaking a bit later in the hall, but a number of members of the Fisk family. It's wonderful to have that connection with Sir Ernest Fisk. So would you welcome and acknowledge all of them? And ladies and gentlemen, can I just make this observation? We think of our era as one which is uniquely affected by the transformation that technology is bringing. But if you cast your mind back 100 years and you think of the impact of having wireless communications at a time when, of course, Australia was engaged in a terrible world war, we had a cable which ran through Alice Springs and Darwin and then further north, so we
we had another form of communication, but of course there would have been great concern about the physical vulnerability of that cable. To have what is known in the telecommunications sector as redundancy, to have a wireless form of communication, was absolutely transformational. And it is of course no surprise that Sir Ernest Fisk went on as the Chief Executive of AWA, which became one of Australia's great companies, to be central to a transformation of communications in our country. Of course, the arrival of radio broadcasting came reasonably soon afterwards using fundamentally the same technology. And so what happened here in Wahroonga was the arrival in Australia of a technology that was absolutely transformational. We think the internet changes lives, and of course it does. But I'd argue to you that the impact of the change that we saw in 1918 was greater than the impact we are seeing today from the internet. I'll conclude my observations there, and we'll take a couple of minutes of appropriate silence or unstructured conversation before we return at 1:15 to reenact the first message.
Thank you so much indeed, Minister Paul Fletcher. Excuse me, sir, could you do the countdown again? And this time we have 2 minutes. I preside each year at the Wahroonga Village Fair, and what a magnificent community. And we are so proud to see on stage dance groups, bands and musicians and representatives of the local school. One time a lady was beside herself with distress and grief and anxiety. She had lost her wedding ring. 15 minutes later, it was found and returned to her. And she was so relieved and grateful. She was from Greece. This could only really happen in Wahroonga. So many congratulations. A place of serenity, grace. A dream, time, place. I must go down to the sea again. The lonely sea in the sky. I left my hat and coat down there. I wonder if they're dry. This is living history. This is so important. It really is spine-chilling. The recreation of what happened 100 years ago on this day, at this time.
Can I make one other observation just for the way? The message that I'll be reading out from Billy Hughes, who was then Australia's Prime Minister. It's not widely known that Billy Hughes finished his career as the first member for Bradfield when the electorate of Bradfield was created after World War II. And so there's a certain synchronicity, I think, that I'm to have the honour of repeating those words from my predecessor as the first member.
And he lived at Linfield, I believe, sir.
He did live in Linfield. In fact, he was a member for North Sydney, and then when North Sydney was split into two, he had to choose between North Sydney and Bradfield. He made a very wise choice.
The bell should toll. Sir, do I seek your permission to proceed without the bell? You're the only man who can actually give me that.
I'll give you that permission.
It is now 1:15.
I have just returned from a visit to the battlefield, where the glorious valour and dash of the Australian troops saved Amin and forced back the legions of the enemy. Filled with greater admiration than ever for these glorious men, and more convinced than ever that it is the duty of their fellow citizens to keep these magnificent battalions up to their full strength.
There's another 3 minutes, I believe. You're probably channeling Billy Hughes. And the sound is coming through the airwaves.
Signal is being received as we speak live at Wahroonga on the north side of Sydney. I just heard the town crier and the speech from the minister. Okay, I'm going to be Marconi live at Wahroonga. North Coast broadcast live in Sydney. Ministers, we welcome people like Dick Smith and a range of dignitaries from Caernarfon, from Amalgamated in South Wales, and WIA live at Wahroonga on the north side of Sydney.
This was the sound of the first direct message transmitted in Morse code and received by Raymond McIntosh for Ernest Fisk in 1918. And we thank John Patterson, VK2ATT, the wireless operator, for its reception here today. So may I impose upon you once more to read out the message. Thank you so much indeed.
I have just returned from a visit to the battlefields where the glorious valour and dash of the Australian troops saved Armenia and forced back the legions of the enemy. Filled with greater admiration than ever for these glorious men, and more convinced than ever that it is the duty of their fellow citizens to keep these magnificent battalions up to their full strength. W.M. Hughes, Prime Minister, September 22nd, 1918.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Now behind me is the memorial monument, an icon of the Wahroonga landscape. It was funded by the Royal Australian Historical Society, the Wahroonga Community Service Association, the Caernarfon Municipal Council, and Amalgamated Wireless Australasia Limited, and was unveiled upon December the 14th, 1935, in the presence of Ernest Fisk and a large crowd of citizens. I believe, as our minister has stated, members of the Fisk family are here today. The Right Honourable W.M. Hughes, Prime Minister of Australia, 1915 to 1923, said, "Wireless was a miracle which had opened up a new world far more spacious than that discovered by Columbus. Nothing would do so much to promote international peace as that modern miracle. They should honour men like Marconi and Fisk, who had done so much to perfect that wonderful means of communication." Now listen carefully. His Excellency, the Marquess Marconi, addressed the Assembly here by wireless, direct from Paris.
Our Australian friends, it gives me very great pleasure to be able to take some part in your ceremony today, after nearly 20 years since I directed the transmissions from the high-power station at Caernarfon, which resulted in the conveyance of the first direct wireless telegraph message to reach Australia from England and Europe. In 1918, when I decided to make my first series of tests in an endeavour to reach Australia without the assistance of intermediate stations, I found Mr. Fisk, who is with you now, ready to bring to the experiment the wealth of knowledge and experience which he had accumulated. And on the 22nd of September of that year, 2 messages were transmitted from Caernarfon, from the Caernarfon station, by means of a 200 kilowatt vertical spark discharger, and received by Mr. Fisk without any error at the experimental wireless station attached to his residence at Wahroonga, North Sydney. And your monument today is the record of the test of the first radio telegram to reach Australia direct from England as the result of our experiments, and thus has laid the foundation of a speedy and highly efficient system of wireless communication which today connects you with the capital of your empire and with other countries, serving so well the interests of mankind. In conclusion, may I say that it has given me eminent pleasure to be associated with the unveiling today of the Wahroonga monument, to mark the now historic step which had so important a part in my earlier experiments. It is indeed gratifying to me to know that the people of Australia appreciate the extent to which wireless is figured in their prosperity, for I firmly believe that without economical and efficient long-distance communications, no country can make much headway.
And these words from Marquess Marconi, they were heard here at this very place on the 14th of December 1935, coming all the way from Paris. Today, we have recreated and relived history. And so, if you were to ask me, are we happy to have you here today as our guest of honor? And are we happy with the unfolding of this historic ceremony? I would reply, yes, Minister. we wish to thank everyone involved with the dramatic realisation of this event, including the Ku-ring-gai Municipal Council for administering the road closure. Many congratulations to all, and I now invite you, by the way, sir, there's just breaking news from Canberra via Morse code. You have been appointed as a special envoy to radio, sir. I now invite you to follow me for further magical diversions to take place in the St. Andrew's Anglican Church Hall. I'm going to do something out of order. We please have free, lusty, hearty, bold Wahroonga cheers for our guest of honour, the Ku-ring-gai Male Choir, you yourself, and the realisation of this historic event. Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hit the heavens! Hip hip! Hooray! The day is young, and so are you. Please follow me, and I hope I know the way. Make way for the prestigious assembly.
G'day, Dragon Radio Club. This is John Bishop, VK2ZOI, President of the Hornsby and District Amateur Radio Club. I hope you enjoyed our little celebration down here, and we are about to continue up in the main hall. We'll catch you there.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to say hello to the Dragon Radio Club?
Hello, Dragon Radio Club.
We're live streaming still to the internet. So.
Okay. I spoke to you on Echolink earlier.
There's Bob.
Hi, Bob from VK2KAZ. Welcome.
Oh, okay, well, he'll see you in about 1 minute, like whatever the delay is.
Hello, Gary and Billingen.
Great to hear, thank you for that.
Thank you, Alistair. And our next speaker is Matt Keane, Member for Hornsby and Minister for Innovation and Better Regulation.
Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having me here today. Could I also acknowledge the unbelievable work of the Ku-ring-gai Historical Society? Thank you so much for bringing this occasion together today. Incredible work, and thank you, really appreciate it. And to the Hornsby District Amateur Radio Club as well, can you please acknowledge their efforts in bringing today to fruition? Thank you so much, guys. Look, it's a great honour for me to be here today as the member for Hornsby, but more importantly, as someone that was born and bred in Wahroonga. For those of you that don't know my story, I went to primary school just down the road here at Pureel, and every day on my way to and from school, I'd pass the memorial on the corner of Cleveland Street. And I had little appreciation for the significance of the monument. But today, as the Minister for Innovation in New South Wales, I cannot pass it without being struck by the incredible importance and significance of that monument. And today, what we're doing is not only celebrating 100 years since that first message was sent from across the seas, from the motherland to here in Australia, but what we're also celebrating is 100 years of entrepreneurship and innovation, which has driven this country and put us up there with one of the leading economies in the world. So this is a hugely historic event, and the times that we live in today, not dissimilar to the times that we were present in 1918, because again, technology is revolutionising every aspect of our lives. Today we've got the internet, we've got television, we've got AI, we've got robotics. It's changing the way we live our lives, it's changing the way we communicate. But all those technologies rolled into one were what the wireless was back in 1918. So that date in 1918 had a huge impact on the future of our country, and technology will continue to shape and transform our lives. So today it's really important that we acknowledge those things. The first message being sent and the impact that innovation and technology is having on our country. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. And our next contribution is from Jennifer Anderson, Mayor of Coringa.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. And at this stage, I might ask my trusty assistant to come and hold the microphone so I can handle pages. On behalf of Coringa Council, I warmly welcome everyone present today at this historic occasion. I begin by stating that on behalf of Council, I recognise the traditional custodians of the land and pay tribute to Elders past and present. I acknowledge all the Members of Parliament that are here today and my Councillor colleagues, Councillor Spencer and Councillor Kelly. I also want to remind everybody that exactly 100 years ago, history was made in this suburb of Coringa. The first radio message was transmitted from the UK to Australia by then Prime Minister Billy Hughes and received in the home of local resident Ernest Fisk. The significance of that first message 100 years ago cannot be overestimated and signalled the beginning of a golden era of radio in Australia. The message was sent in the form of congratulations to Australian troops for their contributions to the First World War. It was set against a backdrop of families across Coringa that had felt the shadow of war for 4 long years. Brothers, sisters, fathers, sons, mothers, daughters, all had served. The personal losses that inevitably had followed the war were keenly felt in our local community at that time. On the date Prime Minister Hughes' message was sent, the armistice was still nearly 2 months away. The uplifting nature of that message could not be overestimated for all the local residents, I'm absolutely sure. And indeed, when I heard Minister Fletcher mention Amiens in France, I certainly know that my own grandfather was on the battlefield at Amiens, Villers-Bretonneux at that time, until the end of the war, where he returned to New South Wales, safe and sound, and built a home that he named Estree, which was the town that he was in when the war ended, and he knew he had survived. I'm sure there are so many families today where those times still resonate today. The achievement of 22nd of September 1918 also eventually paved the way for the introduction of shortwave radio. This was a cheaper and more effective version of the long-wave transmission sent by Prime Minister Hughes, and it is loved by radio enthusiasts everywhere in the world, even to this day. Shortwave radio is less prone to atmospheric interference than medium wave radio and is able to cover a large geographic area with relatively low power and cost. In developing countries, it is widely used for domestic broadcasting for this reason. It's also a wonderful way of connecting people in other countries to each other. In these days of social media and the internet, radio is still a powerful tool in understanding and bridging gaps between different cultures around the world. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the contribution of the Ku-ring-gai Historical Society, particularly Joe Harris, and the Hornsby and Districts Amateur Radio Club for organising today's celebrations, and to Ku-ring-gai Council staff, especially those staff who worked to clean the monument for today's celebration. I would also like to specially mention the Fisk family members who have come here today to mark their pioneering relatives' contribution to radio in Australia. I'm proud to represent the Ku-ring-gai community and the part our local area has played in achieving this milestone for our country. And as Chair of Council's Heritage Reference Committee, sometimes it can be a struggle to save, preserve, cherish the history and character of our area. But that's certainly what I personally strive to do. Thank you, and I now hand back to the member for Bedfield, Mr. Paul Fletcher. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And I should also acknowledge another municipal leader who was with us, Mr. Nathan Tilbury, the Deputy Mayor of Hornsby Shire Council. Nathan, thank you for being with us. It's now my pleasure to introduce, I think we've had an abundance of politicians and government leaders. Now we're going to hear from the private sector in the form of Mr. Dick Smith.
Thank you very much. Put up your hand if you've ever met Sir Ernest Fisk. Put up your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fantastic. Let me tell you my story of meeting him. Sir Ernest Fisk was my hero as a young kid. I built crystal sets, and I heard the big company was AWA. We made everything in Australia. It was absolutely fantastic. When I was 14, I was going to Linda Roseville, went to Northsydney Tech, used to wait for the bus, Monty's bus at Hill Street, Roseville, and this strange bloke used to ride up on his bicycle. He was a great big tall bloke with a bald head, and someone said to me, "That's Sir Ernest Fisk, the man who started AWA." And he was a hero of mine, so I went up and very nervously, I was a bit of a nerd in those days, and said, "Look, my name's Dick Smith, I'd like to meet you." And I remember talking to him. Of course, back in those days, we made everything. 50 years ago last month, I started Dick Smith Electronics. For the first 5 years, everything I sold, we made locally, was made locally, and I even manufactured. One day I woke up in the morning and Gough Whitlam had announced that he was taking the duty off electronics. Of course, it completely destroyed our manufacturing industry. Within 4 or 5 years, AWA had closed down. Yes, given us some advantages, unbelievably cheap iPhones and things like that, and being able to communicate now to Wales for 2 or 3 cents or nothing, but it's sort of changed our way of life in many ways, which is a great disappointment to me. One other thing I want to mention about Sir Ernest Fisk, he was a public figure of the old tradition of leadership. He, to me, always seemed to be in the news, even up until when he died, making important announcements. What a change today, Minister, where they are present business leaders. Rupert Murdoch's just been here, a very influential person, but I don't think he talked publicly, answered questions, or did any interview with the journalists at all. What a pity now that noblesse oblige has gone, and our business leaders are no longer like the leaders of the 50s or 60s that gave me great leadership. Thanks very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Nick. We're now going to hear from Ms. Christine Yates, the President of the Royal Australian Historical Society.
Thank you. Hard act to follow after all that. Thank you, Paul. I won't name all of the state members and the local government representatives. And of course, I should acknowledge all of the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and of course the descendants of Mr. Fisk, extraordinary. I understand that Sarah Walters, the awe-inspiring former City of Sydney librarian, represented the Royal Australian Historical Society when the 75th anniversary was held 25 years ago. I can do my maths. And today it is my great pleasure as President of the Royal Australian Historical Society to be part of this significant anniversary. It really is. I am absolutely amazed at what has been achieved. Streets closed, a terrific venue here, and all these extraordinary presenters. It's just amazing. And it really is great to be able to say just a few words. When I was talking to Jo Harris just the other day, she made the comment to me that we can reach the other side of the globe from our pocket. And that's true. 100 years ago, though, I wonder, did Fisk, Marconi and Hughes imagine our world of iPhones, tablets and Androids, where rapid communication is a given? In fact, I was on holidays in the Northern Territory, in Arnhem Land, and I couldn't get any access to the internet, to my email. It wasn't good. It was withdrawal symptoms, I can tell you. We just expect it. And of course, we are reliant on it. Government, banks, shops, and our friends assume that we're all online. Today, though, we're reminded of a time when post was king, and although the first connection from Australia to the world by the submarine cable was completed in 1872, we still relied very heavily on newspapers and letters from home to find out what was happening. But after 1918, this was about to change. And events such as today, an anniversary celebration such as today, remind us of our shared history. It also reminds us how important events at a local level can have an impact on our national and international news. They also reinforce the importance of monuments. So easy to forget about monuments and what they mean. Monuments all deserve a second look. And here I quote from something that I found about the monument across the road. On a corner in leafy North Shore, Wahroonga, stands an unusual monument. It's on a roundabout with heavy morning and afternoon traffic, but motorists and passing pedestrians rarely notice it. Yet the monument represents a highly significant milestone in Australian history. And on behalf of the Royal Australian Historical Society, I am delighted that the Society back in 1935 played a part in having that monument placed there. Congratulations to all concerned. You've done really, really well. Terrific. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Christine. Can I give a progress report and hopefully an encouraging note? We're now more than halfway through the speeches. And as an incentive, at the end of the speeches, we are going to hear again from this magnificent choir. Now, can I ask Mr. Richard Knott, the President of the Australian British Society New South Wales branch, to address us.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, everybody. As Paul said, my name's Richard Knott. I'm the current President of the Australia-Britain Society, and I'm also the Australian representative for the Friends of St George's and descendants of the Knights of the Garter. Most of our members here are people who have migrated to Australia from Britain or lived in Britain for some time. And this society was set up by Sir Robert Menzies in 1971, and a sister society was set up in Britain by the British Prime Minister, Sir Douglas Hume. And we have around about 250 members. It's one of those quiet groups that celebrate traditional interest items that are peculiar to both of us. Australia Day, the Queen's birthday, and whatever celebrations come along, such as this year we have Prince Charles' 70th birthday. And I'm delighted to be here. I've been a resident of West Pymble for 50 years and plus. Apart from 4 years I did spend in England, And also, if I could add a comment from some of my predecessors who are also here today, Rear Admiral Ross Swan, Mr. Malcolm Longstaff, and a number of members who are also with us as well. If I could add just a personal note of sentiment, I'm also a graduate of the University of Wales, which is now University of Bangor. If you look at the map of Wales, you'll see that Bangor is right up the top, and down the bottom is Swansea. And in terms of that great Welsh bow that stands in that great geography, in the middle we have Aberystwyth and Waunfawr, where this great message was sent by Marconi 100 years ago to lovely, leafy Wahroonga. And when I think back to all the things that have been mentioned here this morning, the fact that this small seed of change that had such a tremendous effect on the whole history of civilization, not just communication, because communication is the foundation which makes us actually get things done, whereas before it was limited to such a basically small series of landlines, pony expresses, semaphore messages, cannons and hot air balloons. So we've now got this here. That doesn't cover the human factor, of course, because a lot of the times we do say things and they don't get through as we actually intend. I was at a function at the Chatsworth Theatre a couple of weeks ago, and a chap leaned forward to me, and I thought he said, "Have you seen Bernard Delfont tonight?" And I said, "No, I haven't seen him either." And Sue Labordas, our administration manager, said, "What on earth did you say that for?" And I said, "That's what I thought he asked." He said, "No, he wanted to know, could you hear in the front where there's so much noise, and what have you paid for?" And I said, "Well, I knew that Bernard Delfont died nearly 40 years ago, so I was fairly confident." So we have this wonderful ability to receive messages as they are intended to go. And I'd like to congratulate everybody who was involved in putting this program together today. Mrs. Jo Harris, who spoke with me at length about it, and certainly the encouragement and support that we've had from our previous society member, Mr. Malcolm Longstaff, who is here today, whose family has been inherently involved with the Fisk family. So congratulations to everybody. Take it away. It's an important part of our British heritage that we have here in Australia. Thank you very much. Congratulations, and God save the Queen.
Well, thank you, Richard. Now we're going to hear from Stuart Armstrong, the President of Rotary Wahroonga.
Thank you, Paul. I really want to re-emphasise Jo Harris's involvement in all this. Although there are many organisations here, Jo has been plotting this for about 3 years at least. I'm not quite sure what she's going to do with herself after today, but it's a fantastic effort. I also should thank Jo for inviting me and forgetting to tell me that I actually had to say anything. I found that out when I arrived today. Fortunately, I only have to speak for a minute or two, so that's fine. There is one thing which I'm intrigued by because no one's mentioned it. Did you all realise that this wireless system that we're celebrating today was a one-way system? The message came from Wales, and I'm just wondering, did they then suddenly find a bloke on a bike to pedal down to Wahroonga Post Office to send a telegram back the other way to say, yes, we got the message, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Stuart. It's now my pleasure to introduce, speaking on behalf of the Fisk family, Dr. Peter Fisk, who is the retired Chief Executive of the National Measurement Institute. I should note that another member of the Fisk family, Professor Nicholas Fisk, is with us. He's Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research at the University of New South Wales, so I think you'll see a bit of a theme about the contribution of the Fisk family in a number of ways. But can I introduce Dr. Peter Fisk?
Thank you, Minister, and also on behalf of the Fisk family here and those who are not here, thank you to Jo Harris, the Society, and everybody else who organised this meeting. We're very, very proud to be here. We're proud of Sir Ernest, who is my grandfather, and we're very much enjoying it. So I was asked to spend 2 or 3 minutes condensing 89 years of Sir Ernest's life into 2 or 3 minutes, so thank you, Jo, for that task. No problem at all. But I'll do it from a perspective of a family member, but also from the perspective of somebody who spent an entire career in physics and science and the application of technology to the good of Australia. And I think that's a helpful perspective in this context. So Sir Ernest was born in 1886. Times, and when in his teenage years he worked as a paperboy on the local railway station, and later worked had a job in the local post office, starting as a messenger boy. But he was bright. He was able to educate himself and learn what he needed to learn and find information, and he worked his way up to be a telegraphist, which was relatively new technology at that time. He worked as a telegraphist for a while, and then decided to fund himself to attend the Marconi School of Wireless, which was very new technology at the time. He sold his bicycle to help fund him to do that. His family couldn't afford to do it. And he graduated from that school. And at that time, the Marconi company was a very major influence on the provision of what they called wireless technology in those years. A major part of their activities was providing wireless installations for communications to and from ships. And as part of the contract with the shipping company, the Marconi company would not only provide and install the equipment in the ship when it was built, but they would also provide the operators. And my grandfather was one of those operators. He spent several years touring the world as a Marconi wireless operator. But that wasn't enough for him. He had seen what wireless could do for the safety of ships at sea, and but he decided to apply himself to what wireless could do for the prosperity of nations. And to that end, he had himself appointed as the Marconi Company's representative in Australia in about 1911, selling and representing the company as their equipment was installed in Australia for various communications purposes. In 1913, he banded with some other people to form this AWA, Amalgamated Wireless in Australasia, and by the time of the late 1900s, 1919 or so, he was its managing director, and around that time, of course, he really received the message that he we're talking about here today. But he went on to greater things. He led the AWA until 1944, when he left to become managing director of EMI, and he retired from that position in 1952. But during that time, I would say as his major achievement, he, in the mid-1920s, he saw the potential of the message initially demonstrated in 1918 and established with the AWA company the first commercial direct wireless communications system from Australia to the UK. And that was a facility based at Fiskville, or near Ballarat in Victoria. And it was an enormous achievement. Nothing was off the shelf there. Everything had to be made. Nobody knew that it would work for sure. And he had the ability to actually bring together the team of technical experts that was needed to do that. He had the vision to understand what was possible, what it could do for Australia, and what it would take to actually implement it. He had the leadership ability to inspire the people, the subject matter experts who built that system, made it work, turned it into a commercial success such that the final outcome was far greater than the sum of the contributions. And he had the business skills to make it commercially successful. That's an enormous achievement. But to finish up, as a person, he married Florence Chudley, a governess, in about 1916, and over the next couple of decades he had 4 sons. My father, Ernest Kelvin, Thomas Maxwell, Graham Chudley, and David Marconi, and many of you will recognise the names of well-known scientists of the era and before in those names. My father described him as a man who was strongly driven to succeed, with a shortish temper and an enormous love for his family. He also described him as a lifelong friend, close friend, and respected friend and helper throughout Sir Ernest's life, and I'm sure that was true of his other sons as well. Sir Ernest greatly valued, as well as knowledge and learning, he greatly valued physical fitness. His coat of arms, which was given to him when he was knighted in 1937, had as its logo sound in mind, sound in body, and Sir Ernest apparently translated that to be fit but not stupid. So, but I mentioned, to finish up, I mentioned that he was a man who had vision, he had the ability to make things happen, he was a practical businessman, and he had the ability to lead and inspire groups of people to make things happen for nations. There are a number of people who have been like that, and many people like that since then. And an example that I'm often asked about is the iPhone, and Steve Jobs was the visionary behind that. Whoever thought that microprocessors would lead to iPhones that would communicate around the world, providing information wherever you wanted it. But people ask me, what would my grandfather have thought of that? And my response after thinking about it is, well, I think he always envisaged somebody having something in their pocket like I do today that could communicate with just about anybody, anywhere in the world at any time. He would be fascinated to see what it would do, but what set him apart was that his strongest and most compelling interest would have been, what's it going to do for us in 20 years' time? What's it going to look like in 20 years' time? That's where he would have focused his attention. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Peter, for giving us a bit of colour about Sir Ernest's life and his extraordinary contribution to delivering technology to Australia, but also, as you say, having the business skills to make that a commercially successful venture, which meant that so many people could have the benefit of that technology. Can I now ask Mr. John Bishop, the President of the Hornsby District Amateur Radio Club, to address us? Is John here?
Thank you, Minister. Did it. Did-da-da. Did-da, did it. Da-di-da-da. Da-da-da. Da-da, did. Now, if we were doing this in 1918 and we wanted to speak to each other, that's how we would have done it. Haven't we come a long way? Much of what I would have liked to have said and wanted to say has already been said, so I won't repeat it. But I do want to say this, that the Hornsby and District Amateur Radio Club are very proud to be part of today's celebration. We have been celebrating this event since the 75th anniversary in 1993. Every year since that date, we have run a special event station under the call sign of VK2WAH. The WAH was the best we could get to represent Wahroonga. Today we have a call sign on our special event station out there, VK100 Marconi, to celebrate the connection between Wales 100 years ago to Wahroonga, to Australia, and we've chosen the name Marconi because he was the person running the transmitter over in Wales. We will probably be involved for many years to come in celebrating this event. Probably every year, certainly every 5 years. Amateur radio is a hobby that has its foundation in these early days of radio. But we're not stuck there by any means. We've embraced many technologies and the development of technologies ever since. And can I recommend, particularly to the young people of today, get involved in amateur radio. It's a hobby, it's a communications hobby, it has technical aspects, it certainly is a hobby that has no gender, social, class sort of boundaries, those fictitious boundaries that we throw up between people today. And it's certainly a great way that our young people can get involved in technology, and hopefully they will progress to a career in the science, technical, engineering. Please, I must emphasise, our display's outside. Please come and visit us. And once again, I congratulate all the other organisers who helped to make this message, but the great men who were behind it.
Thank you, John. For a moment I thought that was a reference to a song from one of those German electronic bands of the 1980s, but I was clearly wrong. That was Morse code, so that's great. Can I now ask Jennifer Joyce of the Ku-ring-gai Historical Society, who's going to be our final speaker.
As President of Historical Society, it'll probably come as no surprise to you that I'm interested in history. And it's great to see so many people here to celebrate an historic event today. And even more exciting, an historic event that took place in Ku-ring-gai. 100 years ago, so much has changed. Back in the era, as many people have mentioned, of writing letters, it still remained that way as the predominant form of communication. I think we can all remember how almost impossible it was to make an overseas call. Even when I was younger, you'd have to book it in days in advance and wait for it. Now, I can be writing on Facebook. A year ago, I was working on trying to decide Facebook and said, can anybody help me? One of my friends in England, who were working backwards and forwards with Facebook Messenger till we managed to decipher and translate. And yet now, that's what we take for granted. Everybody being here today is itself history, and you have been part of an historic event. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. Again to you, to the Historical Society, to Joe Harris in particular, to everybody who's been involved in organising today, to all of our guest speakers and dignitaries here. Can I express my thanks? And it now falls to me to pass back to Town Crier Graham Keating, who is going to introduce the choir, and that will be how we will conclude the formalities today. So ladies and gentlemen, the Town Crier Graham Keating.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much indeed, Minister Paul Fletcher. A round of applause for our Master of Ceremonies. Well, history is alive and well and living in Wahroonga. And I learned today the origin of the term ham radio. The original Morse coders were very dexterous and nimble-fingered, like John Patterson. But those who followed were ham-fisted, and they weren't as clear and as clean. And that's the origin of ham radio. It is now with pride, privilege, and pleasure that we invite the Ku-ring-gai male choir to sing, firstly, and weren't they wonderful today, ladies and gentlemen? Weren't they superb? To sing a song of their choice, then the Welsh national anthem, and remembering the Welsh who pray on their knees and their neighbours. They keep the Sabbath, and anything else they can lay their hands on. I am Irish. My name Keating means smoke brother. I won't continue. The Welsh national anthem, followed by our Australian national anthem. Please welcome on stage once more the dulcet tones of the Ku-ring-gai male choir.
So we're singing the first verse and chorus. I'll do the Welsh, try to, and then we'll sing an English translation.
The patriotic tone and fervour of Welsh tenor soloist David Watson. May God bless Wahroonga. And may God bless Australia. And may we have three lusty, hearty, bold cheers, raise the rafters, shatter the lanterns for this glorious day. Are we ready? Hip, hip. Hooray! Hip, hooray! Hip, hooray! We can take on the world.